Welcome to Gray Areas for October 22nd, 2024, episode 645. I think we're live. Yeah.
My, how the tables have turned with Dave waltzing in at the last second.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see you pull off the fact that I'm even sitting here right now with all of that I had to do. Also, I can't even see you guys. So, I don't even know if you're there or not. Am I talking to nothing?
Well, it's hard to share a screen to no one. So
yeah, what could have helped us better share the screen, Dave?
Look, now the thing's broken on air. Because,
is if you were. Oh, I lost what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm so glad I threw you off. It's great.
Something about you being late.
Nope.
I'm not on time, despite you giving so much grief anytime I'm late. I'm sure it'll come to me later.
No, you've lost it.
Yeah, I don't have it anymore. I'm not on my A game.
Maisie's comment there, I had a crazy Tuesday. I'd love to know what you think my crazy Tuesday was. I'm just curious, what people think I have to do on a Tuesday.
I think she was being sincere for the record.
Right.
So now you're turning your anger.
I think she was. I'm just curious what she knows of. I know Sean's being a sarcastic ass, but Maisie, on the other hand, actually likes me. So,
Well, here's what she has said in response.
What do you call it when
CES.
You're so tilted that even your allies are being dropping down with you? Something. I'll think of it later.
You are having trouble thinking of things tonight.
I'm not. Are you kidding?
That's because he's shrunk. See how much smaller he looks now because he raised his camera up?
Why is he tiny?
I don't know.
What'd you do?
He's down there now.
All right.
I lifted my camera because it's not good to be looking up at you. It's good to look down at you. But I didn't have time because the cord isn't long enough. So this is the best I could do for now.
So how many traditions do we have on this show, really? We have the annual look back, right? Of what we do. Well, like our best of year. We have Christmas, some sort of Christmas episode, usually once a year.
Nostalgia month we have now.
And the Suns preview.
Yeah, and the Suns preview.
I guess the game show has
the traditions like no other.
The game show has become a tradition. We've done it 12 times now.
Well, but that's like a thing. You know what I mean? Like a tradition is like at the same time every year we do this thing, and game shows, thankfully, they're just like a segment. Before we jump in on some stuff, for those who are still tuned in and will tune off when we say the name Devin Booker, I have been playing Metaphor a lot. I don't know if Chris has gotten to it yet, but I want to do a blowout review of that.
It's going to deserve a full episode, I think. I'm almost done with Echoes of Wisdom, so that will be next.
I'm amazed at how quickly you're plowing through Echoes of Wisdom with how long it took you to beat games like Breath of the Wild.
Well, yeah, I'm actually enjoying it, so it goes a long way.
Yeah, oh man, everything I've seen, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm.
Well, and it's interesting. You know that you're going to enjoy Echoes of Wisdom?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I really don't.
I think you'll be surprised.
So we'll say this on the review because we should review that as well.
Yes.
I think it starts off great and it loses a bit of steam. But it's still good. I'm still enjoying it. So we'll do a full review, Dave. And part of that review can be, Dave, you should play it. I'm hoping our Metaphor review, you have also played at least some of it, and we can all do a full review because, like Chris said, it deserves it. There's a lot to it.
Are we doing that review in 2025?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have time before.
Maybe have a chance.
As I say, unless I beat it before Thanksgiving, it's not going to happen because December's already booked, and then first 2 weeks of January are booked, so it's going to be tough. We also, and I'm just going to do this on air because the hell with it, we're going to have to figure out what top 5 Cody should do. This will be his first time as a full cast member.
Whoa.
He needs his own top 5. I have a couple thoughts, but something to think about because we all kind of piggyback off of each other's, but we each have kind of our own thing, and so he's going to need his own because he can't also do TV. I mean, he can chime in on it, but that's not going to be his list. That's like Dave's thing, and Sean also does it.
I don't know. I wonder, if Cody, because Cody's like me, where he might just have a games and movies, or I'm sorry, a TV and movies list, and especially movies. Dave is more TV, Chris is more games, and then I do everything. So
sure,
that could be.
But he has things that you don't. For example, top 5 sports moments of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you could.
Something. I don't really want to do.
We went back to top 5 Caitlyn moments of the year, which was fine, but I don't know. Was that critical?
that was a thing that you jokingly said I would do, and I never actually did.
No, you did. You did. You did.
Shit, I did.
You
That's
did.
right.
You did, because I
Uh-oh.
know this because I've been looking back at all of them, and I'm going to be bringing it up in a positive ways, like revisiting all those times. So I'm really looking forward to you revisiting Caitlin's moments. Like, yeah, I said it was her first steps, but really it was the first time she said Papa or whatever. It'll be fascinating.
I actually have a very funny story that you guys will laugh at. Is she was working on some sort of invitation in the for her friends. She was inviting them over to her house, so she wanted to like make up these invitations, and so she was cutting up these cards and everything, and she wanted to do it. So I left the room, and I'm sitting out in the living room, and all of a sudden I hear, "God damn it!" And I'm like, "My daughter just said that." What?
Was that a top
I was like,
five
"Okay,
moment?
she's getting older."
And what
That's funny.
what was it over?
She cut the paper wrong. Like she cut the paper down the middle of where she was supposed to have the invitation and cut it like right in the middle of it, and was like just pissed off.
Was it just like, God damn it? Or was it like, fucking bullshit, piece of shit,
No.
motherfucker?
No. It was just a God damn it, and I'm like, what? What?
What did she say? Nothing.
Yeah.
No, I walked in. I'm like, Caitlin, you doing all right in here? Oh, I messed up.
I'm
Okay.
fine.
Good. Yeah, so lots of stuff to talk about. Coming up. I'm really excited to do the review, and I'm really excited for the end of the year. I've already been thinking about it, which is crazy, because this year has just gone by so fast. And we're almost at the end of it already.
Boy, has it. As a reminder, next week is, I guess, sort of a tradition. It's tough because it only happens every 4 years, but we also have a presidential election episode coming up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't have, like, we should do it. I want to do it for sure. I'm wondering if Cody and I can also do a segment on when we were young. It's a huge music festival. We both went. I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about. And I don't know how much I care to fill an entire episode of this election. To be really honest with you, we can't. I won't have a problem talking about it. I'm just not that interested.
You know how much I want to
in
talk
either
about this
candidate.
election?
So
I want to have the follow up the week after the election to be, hey, an election happened. Yep. All right, moving on.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to talk about it after the fact.
Yeah. So, for your all consideration, doesn't need to be a lot, but a whole episode talking about Trump and Kalma, I'm just like, I don't know.
Nope.
Which I think sums up how we feel about it overall, and how America feels.
Yep. I don't know. You can see plenty of people who are excited on either side, and I'm like, how?
I mean,
Well, it's all publicity stunt. Well, we'll get to this next week.
yeah,
We'll get to it next
I
week.
think there's, if you're comparing excitement levels to where we were 3 months ago, I don't think it's hard to understand why whatsoever. So let's talk about it next week, because I have plenty to say. But we can also talk about the concert, yes.
Okay, great.
It's time to talk about the Phoenix Suns. And now you're going to tune off. No, don't.
It'll be interesting.
We haven't said the words Devin Booker yet. We will. And I want to start by looking back at last year and use that to inform this year. We talked about last year to death towards the end, and then they got swept by the Timberwolves, and we kind of, like, we touched on it, and then we sort of were just like, yeah, like, they got their ass kicked. There's not really a lot to say, right? But I think there's some useful lessons to take from last year, so I've pulled up one screen in particular, and now I'm just going to put you guys... the transition doesn't work. Oh, no, I hit the wrong one. No, it doesn't
Nobody
work.
puts baby
That's
in the
fine.
corner.
Here we go. I'll just click it
yeah.
myself.
There
And
you
it's
go.
broken, and I got to
Oh,
fix
no.
it, but I couldn't do that before the show because Dave wasn't here. So I'll fix that real quick. But as I'm doing it, here are last year's Suns stats and opponent stats. And the audio listeners can't see them, but I want you guys to just look these over and tell me what sticks out to you.
Let's see.
Well, one thing is our record being better than it should have been, considering how really not good we were and how little joy we played with. Let's see. I'll keep looking. Our defense is
the
better
field
than
goal percentage, a
expected.
full 3% higher, is quite a big deal.
What'd you say, Dave?
And the field goal percentage, the team field goal percentage being 3% higher is in twos, or in the overall, the 2-point percentage being extremely high, and then 3-point percentage being, it looks like our shooting percentage is pretty good overall as far as the team goes.
Our
The
defense
opponents
improved, actually,
yeah.
which was weird. We needed to be middle of the road, and we were better than middle of the road. Offensively, we struggled, but probably not with like shooting percentage. I bet you rebounding was terrible. Offensive boards. And there was one other thing I was gonna say. Turnovers, I feel like were probably pretty high.
Turnovers are pretty high.
And obviously, I don't know if I can't see it here. It's not going to be here, but like fourth quarters, we'd be leading the entire game, and they just have one bad quarter, and that was the ball game.
Yeah, we were the worst in the league in fourth quarter disparity. That held up through the entire season. That's not here, but that is one stat that feels like it has to improve, because if it doesn't, then we're dead on arrival anyways. But there's really no reason the team should have been that bad in the fourth. It was almost like an overcorrection for the Chris Paul year, like 2 years prior, when we were like assassins in the fourth quarter. Like we could be behind, and I know Dave placed a couple bets where it's like, oh, Suns are down 7 with 8 minutes left. They're going to win. And it's like, yep, they damn near did every time.
Yep.
To me, I look at this and I see three things. Number one, Sean mentioned turnovers. 25th worst in the league, 14.9 a game, 27th in percentage of possessions that end in a turnover. And some of our new additions, we'll touch on that, so we'll get there. 3-point attempts, 25th in the league.
Yep.
But 5th in percentage. Coach Budenholzer is not going to allow that to continue. How much it helps is obviously up for debate. But they're going to take more threes, probably like 10 more a game, if I had to guess.
Miss a few more.
Yeah, just a few more. And then the defensive ratings aren't here, but Sean mentioned the other one as well, which is our defense was 15th. Now, is that because Frank Vogel really is a good defensive coach and he made the most out of the roster? Maybe. But other than Eric Gordon, the top minutes guys from last year are still here. It's how they filled in around them that's going to matter. So we'll touch on the new additions and all that stuff, but I wanted to start here because I looked at this and I thought to myself, this team had 41 games of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant total. That's half a season. Only 41 games the three of them played together. And with everything that went wrong with last season, as Sean said at the very start, they won 49 games. Now, Pythagorean says that that's what they were supposed to win based on their point differential and other factors, but it doesn't feel that way.
Well, what's so weird, I'm glad you brought up last year as a starting point, because everything that we thought, like eye test, everything that we were worried about, and they were like, don't worry, we're going to do this thing. Don't worry, Frank Vogel, he's actually a great coach for us. Don't worry, no point guard, we're going to do point book. And all of it panned out exactly how we were afraid of. He wasn't a great coach for the team. There was a weird sort of tension the whole year. We didn't look right on offense almost at any point, even when we won. Like, you can count, I think, the games on your hand of like where we hummed on offense. It just looked stilted, and points seemed hard to come by despite the ease of which some of our players can score. It just didn't work. And so you're scratching your head saying, like, I am still, like, I care about the Suns and I am more about basketball than the average person. But like a layman can tell you that wasn't going to work, and it didn't. And so the whole thing was just very confusing, I thought.
It was almost amazing to see three players who are talented, willing passers, good shooters who can generally create their own shot. Three of them on the floor at the same time. And yet it seemed like our offense went stagnant, iso ball, and long twos. And it was like, how is that a possibility that we have three shot creators? And then we had Grayson Allen on the side there, who shot one of the best, if not the best in the NBA 3-point percentage wise, or was one of the best at some point in the season. And yet our offense looks stagnant. Our offense overall, as far as points, we're top 10 in the league in points scored. So that's, I mean, a good thing. But still, it felt like we left so much on the table last year.
In a way, I think the reason the fourth quarter disparity was there is basic basketball. In the fourth quarter, things are going to tighten up. People are applying a little more pressure on defense, and that small difference can make a huge difference overall. Like when you're kind of trying to figure it out.
I think the problem is that they were bad the whole game, and then the fourth quarter exacerbated that problem for the reasons you said. It was like average ball movement for the first three quarters, and then it went in the tank because of those factors. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. There's two other ones that stick out to me. We were third in the league in free throws made because we're a really good shooting team, but still sixth in attempts. which, considering our rep as a mid-range shooting team, and believe me, the rep matches the stats, surprised me a little bit. Now, we've got some very good and like talented offensive players who can force the issue. But I thought, like, well, if they're going to shoot more threes, is that going to go down? I don't know. If you convert some of the mid-ranges to threes, there's not a reason that it should really decline. And then defensive rebounding, 7th, 10th in total rebounds. Not a good offensive rebounding team, but again, that's not surprising because the 3 guys we mentioned, the 3 stars, are none of them really good at crashing. But for all the undersized stuff, and I guess Nurkic helps, but 10th in the league in rebounds per game, it's going to be a similar profile this year. Again, we're a little bit undersized. Maybe we got a little bit better at backup big, but if those are some of the stats from last season, I think to myself, I can see a scenario where this works.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, I can too, but if we're ready to transition, I think a huge part of that is, let's just start where I think it all starts in the new coach, because I think Budenholzer is a better overall coach than Frank Vogel. I think even if he wasn't, he would be a better fit for what we're trying to do. I think he's more offensive minded, and like less weird. Sorry, Frank. I think he never really gelled with the team. And I think he has been, for example, why I said it starts with him. He's been advocating for a point guard. He said it from his first press conference, like, I love what we're doing, but we probably need a point guard. And then we got 2. I was going to say 1. We actually got 2. We got Monty Morris and then we got Tyus Jones. So I think that is a huge part of it. And then, that goes to somebody who can settle down the offense, who can distribute, who's going to get players open looks, and having the guard who led the league in assist to turnover ratio in Tyus Jones, I think is a huge part of that.
It makes it that you feel solid almost. Like when we had Chris Paul, it felt like, okay, no matter what, he's bringing the ball up and we're going to get at least a set run. We're going to get something going. We're going to see something and get it most times than not. We're going to get a good shot. Maybe we won't make it. Maybe we won't. But most times we're going to get a good shot. I feel like last year it had the times we got a good shot was when either we were able to break the defense down because Booker, Beal, or Durant made a good move, or they went ice the ball and shot over because they can do that. Other than that, I don't feel like the offensive sets were why we got good shots.
Well, and to your point, like not half the time, the stats won't say half the time, but I can think of so many times where it's like, okay, Durant's going to initiate the offense and he turned it over. Okay. Like not trying to make a big play, fucking dribbling at near half court and just turns it over. And you're like, fucking, we can't even forget about a good look. We can't even get a shot up because we can't even initiate the offense. This is going to help with that.
Even if we're slightly worse defensively this year, if you can shave 2 turnovers a game, which gets you a little bit above league average, teams score, I think, 1.4 or 1.5 points per possession off turnovers. When they're live ball turnovers, we know how devastating they are, especially because now it's not even defending the rim anymore. It's everybody leaks out to different 3-point spots, and good luck because you're going to give up an open look, and teams make a high percentage of them. That could be 3 points a game. Just there. Mm-hmm. It's just math. It doesn't even matter about personnel or positions or any of that. 3 points a game is a huge difference in this league.
That was the point differential we had on the stats you just showed, 116 versus 113. Like,
and you know what? Being able to pin the hopes on a known commodity, truly, like Jones, compared to Keita Bates-Diop. It's like, I don't know. He had one kind of good season, and so he could have a high ceiling, and we had like 4 players that were like that, and they pretty much all busted. So that was disappointing. I think we have a lot better crew, and we don't need to maybe tackle that quite yet, but everything is just looking up this year.
I mean, I'm kind of ready to talk about that a little bit, because if you look at what we had last year, like when we did our season preview last year, what did we talk about on the bench? We talked about the big 3. We talked about Grayson Allen not knowing what he was going to be, and we talked about Nurkic. And then we look at our additions we've signed. Wanatabe, we signed Eric Gordon, we signed Drew Eubanks, and we signed Nasir Little. It's like, oh God, none of them worked. Yeah, like Eric Gordon was
on bright side of the
okay.
Sun, they're all like out of the league or like really struggling, except for Eric Gordon, obviously. But fuck that guy. Yeah. He could only play for us if he started, which was like we signed him explicitly for not that. So fuck him. The last thing I want to say, just in that comparing this season to last season, is that in preseason, and again, it's preseason, paces are a little bit faster, and you're also playing a little bit looser, but we're shooting like I mean, top 10, if not more. Number 3, most threes in the preseason. And what I like about that is Ryan Dunn, we'll get to him in a second, but like Kevin Durant is taking threes that he used to pass on. And even if there's a defender running at him, he's still shooting it. And it's like, yeah, because you should be. Because your half contested three is going to be better than most other players on our team shooting a wide open three even. I like that you're going to pass it. That's good basketball. But just take the shot, Durant. You're fucking Kevin Durant. Let's do it. And he is.
It made me wonder what Vogel would say in that situation. Like, would he tell Durant not to shoot it and drive it in? Like, I don't know. But it's so weird thinking that this guy Budenholzer, of whom after game 2 of the finals in 2021, when he put up on the board, all right, play fast, play random, guys. I was like, random? Okay, how stupid is that? I'm like, oh, thank God Budenholzer's here, because I'm really happy he's here right now.
You can see a major stylistic change in the preseason. And again, preseason, the caveat's already been mentioned. But it's a much more attractive style of basketball. I think that's what makes me the most optimistic, is because I'm more excited to watch this team regardless of results. I think they're going to do well. It's not like this team's going to suck. This is going to be a 25-win team. But in general, it's more ball movement. It's less ISO. It's more good early shot opportunities, and not, as Sean mentioned, passing those up and then finding yourself with 5 on the shot clock, having no choice but to ISO. To me, that's going to go a long way. And also, as weird as this is, because the roster is very similar at the top, the vibes are a lot better. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I'm a huge guy who's an advocate for like, oh, the vibes are going to carry us this year. But if you already have a lot of talent and you can stay healthy, which will be a big part of our predictions when we get there, the vibes are going to make a difference. It's part of why we loved the finals team so much, because the vibes were immaculate.
Well, and it's interesting because the vibes look better. And I think part of this is a carryover from the Olympics, which will also help that experience, that intensity, all of that is. I think it's going to help Booker and Durant a lot. But I think even Beal had some line to the effect of like, the vibes are way better this year. Like, we're at a level I don't know that we got to last year already. And it's like, you can see it. It's obvious.
I don't know if it was the pressure of starting last year, the fact of that we started out with these high hopes, and then everyone expected things, and then Beal got here, and it's like, oh yeah, we have a super team here, and then Beal missing essentially the first half of the season just killed those vibes. And then it felt like we were playing catch up all year because Beal missed so much, and then Beal came back and we weren't killing it immediately. Yeah, we had some good stretches, but we weren't just like, oh yeah, this is the team we expected. Felt like we were always playing catch up. We were always behind the 8 ball, and then we faced the Timberwolves and just got it handed to us in the playoffs and never hit our stride whatsoever. So I feel like the pressure is almost off in a way, which is a weird thing considering what we have on this roster.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only thing I'd expand on is I think the vibe, like, yes, you're right that like him being hurt for the first half was terrible. I think even with that, the chemistry is better now. Like, I think even if he were to get hurt, God, please don't let it happen again. But like, I think we'd be
knock on wood.
Better foundation, you know.
It's a team that was 2 games under 500, I think, at almost the halfway point. Yeah, and then they played like 20 games over 500 the rest of the way, and that's how they got to the 6th seed, avoided the play-in, all that jazz, and then got swept. But the slow start to the season, especially with Beal's injury, meant it was hard to gel. And then when they brought him back, it was to shoehorn him in as point guard, and that clearly didn't work. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. There's some reasons to be scared still, and we'll touch on it. But I think the next step really is just to go into the roster. I don't even have that much to say about like a Devin Booker or a Kevin Durant. They're known commodities, and other than the fact that they're just going to get to play more in their natural roles, there isn't a lot to say there. But I think everybody else, even some of the returners like Grayson or Yusuf, there's something to be said for them. So I don't know if you want to tackle returners who are changing or newcomers first.
It makes sense to do the returners. So, yeah, Grayson Allen, he's a beefcake now. He's huge. Jacked as fuck. A lot of times that can mean that your shot is affected, but he seems to still be shooting it pretty well. So if it's just good shooting Grayson Allen, but now it's some meat on him, I am A-okay with that.
I mean, if nothing else, it shows a very high level of dedication in the offseason, which I'm appreciative of when professionals work in the offseason and put that in. I think that it means that he's potentially going to be a better defender. Maybe he can guard a little bit bigger guys with more strength that he has there, which is going to help us a lot, especially if we kind of want to go super small ball when we have, I mean, if we have a Tyus Jones, Beal, Booker, Durant, and Allen, like we can throw that lineup out there and have a small ball lineup. But if Grayson Allen can get out there and guard the 4. Okay, that should work.
Well, and I was
We'll see.
thinking coming off the bench, I think is going to be good because if he's on a streaker that if he's just hitting, then yeah, we do a small ball lineup. We maybe he finishes the game because he's just on fire. But I think he's going to get better looks coming off the bench and is going to give that unit a huge injection, much needed injection of scoring because that's last year also. I didn't see it in the stats, but I think we probably really struggled on second unit scoring.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Oh, yeah. Percentage of bench scoring was one of the worst in the league.
Yeah.
Grayson Allen led the league in three-point shooting last year. 46%.
Yes, he did.
It was leading.
46% on 6 attempts. Not
46,
not a few.
right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Kevin Durant shot 41%. Bradley Beal shot 43%. Booker, of course, has never really shot great from 3. It's always confusing with his mechanics and his form. But still, 36%. Royce O'Neal shot 38%.
Yeah.
And now there's a couple better shooters in the lineup that we'll get to when we talk about the additions. To me, the biggest thing with Grayson, I think the defensive points are correct, but to me, we only saw it in the first preseason game because he got hurt and they're just being careful with him. It's this new weight adding to his ability to play pick and roll and then play short roll, which we talked about with the loss of some folks like Drew Eubanks or some former players like DeAndre Ayton who would catch the ball in a 4-on-3 situation 20 feet from the hoop and have no fucking clue what to do with it.
Yep.
That's not going to be a problem for Grayson Allen in that situation. So if he hefted up a little bit and can set halfway decent screens, he's not going to be a phenomenal screener. He's undersized. But if that allows him to play that little bit more physical brand in a 5-out offense, whether that's Nurkic on the floor or not, I think that opens up a lot of new possibilities for some really interesting pick and roll possibilities.
Yeah. Speaking of Nurkic, I'm thinking of Nurkic as it was almost funny at times last year where Nurkic would be the de facto point guard, where I see Nurkic bringing the ball up, and I'm like, this just
or running the
wrong.
offense through him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, he's a very willing passer, a good passer, and that was kind of something we hung our hat on a little bit, where it's like, hey, we can make it without a point guard because we can throw it to Nurkic in the high post, and he'll find a good cutter or passer or something like that. And we have willing cutters like Booker and Beal. It didn't work. Having him as a secondary playmaker, though, hello, that's way more. It's like the whole, Mikal Bridges can't be a number 1 scorer, but a number 3 scorer, that sounds good.
Oh my God, you just made me realize that's probably part of the reason why we struggled in fourth quarters is he was our point guard, but then he gets played off the floor because he can't hang defensively, and then all of a sudden we have no playmaking. That's a good call. Him being not the primary playmaker, I think is going to be huge. Him losing a lot of weight and hopefully helping his speed a little bit, agility a little bit, I think is also going to be huge.
I'm excited to see what this means. I know the comparison, just because of Bud and whatnot, has been Brook Lopez. And we'll be honest, Yusuf Nurkic is not as good as Brook Lopez. So,
no.
But if he's half of that, if the ability for him to actually make the corner 3 and force defenders out of the paint to respect it, because that also unlocks his playmaking. Now, if somebody has to rush out at him and close out because he's at least a decent threat, now he can up fake and go. And again, in that situation, I trust his ability to make the right read in a way that I wouldn't with almost anybody else who's been a center for the Suns the last couple of years.
Yeah, or if he's in the corner and you make the defender commit, you can hit a cutter going in now because he has that vision and the lane is open. Yeah, there
was one play that got clipped, and you guys may have seen it, and it was just that one time, I think it was 2 games ago, like the third game of the preseason, where he was open in the corner for 3. A defender ran at him. They swung it around. They reversed it. They swung it around the perimeter. Ended up with a Durant open 3. One play, whatever, right? But to me, it's emblematic of the type of basketball we need to play to be our best. So if they can continue that and not just fall into the old situations as before, to me, that's a huge plus.
Mm-hmm.
It's if they're playing connected, if they're playing at a it's funny, the old 0.5 offense I loved so much because it felt like everybody was moving, but they would move together because they had a feel for one another. That vibe, I guess, is almost where that comes in. And that's a little bit of what I'm feeling here because it feels like, okay, we're willing to make the pass. We're willing to not just be like, oh, yeah, Durant's got it. Booker's got it. No, moving around.
Yeah, and to your point, Dave, I think that's a good call because no matter what, I think we're a much improved team. I really do. Even if we brought back the exact same roster, I told you guys this before, I thought we were going to have a better season just because it's another year of chemistry and it's another year of that familiarity and building those connections. So we have that, but also we filled the gaps with a lot stronger pieces. So I think it's going to make a big difference.
I mean,
I'm good.
I was going to say, I'm just, as I look at the minutes from last season, again, top 8 except for Eric Gordon, are back, because we mentioned briefly Royce O'Neal, Josh Okogie is back. Then there was this, like we mentioned, the free agent minimums, where we thought they did pretty well considering what they had to work with. And all the guys we mentioned, Bates Diop, Goodwin, Watanabe, Metu, Nasir Little, Thad Young felt like kind of a weird one because it didn't seem like he played poorly. It just didn't seem like Vogel wanted to play him.
No, not at least. And when he got in, it felt like he did good things. It was so confusing.
But around the core that's coming back, because I don't really have anything to add to Royce O'Neal, I think he's a really nice bench piece,
Right.
but is now additions at, I would say, 3 core spots. And then if we're already talking about 7 of the top 8 being back, that's a 10-man rotation. Sean mentioned 2 of them earlier. We might as well get to them now. Tyus Jones, Monty Morris. Even in the preseason, or maybe because it was preseason, I can't tell you how many fucking times I've already heard that Tyus Jones led the league in assist-to-turnover ratio for the last 6 seasons. I heard it in every broadcast, and most of the time, multiple times. And this is just me watching the 10-minute highlight version. I heard it every single game. So be prepared to hear that to death.
Well,
But-
I hope we still do. It's
Yeah.
why he's getting a bunch of turnovers.
But what it
If he's
represents
doing it this year,
is
great.
important. So for way under what he should have gotten paid, he probably should have gotten 10 to 12 million in the offseason. We get Tyus Jones because essentially the big 3 sell him on the concept. The ownership, James Jones, sell him on the concept. And he's guaranteed a starting spot, which was going to be a point of contention, I think. I actually kind of like that it worked out that way because since he was, it sort of like solidified the starting 5. Bud even said it at his opening press conference at the start of camp, like, this is our 5, which is good because it stopped all the stupid Beal to the bench stuff,
Yep.
which maybe that's even the best version of this team, but you're not going to start the season that way.
No. And we'll get there. But yeah.
But the point being, Tyus Jones is going to be the starting point guard and doesn't turn the ball over, shot 40% plus from 3 last year,
Yeah.
can attack the rim, can attack and play make, and more importantly, he's a goddamn point guard. And it was so weird last year trying to talk ourselves into we don't need it. We were trying to be the copium like everybody else when we know too goddamn well from pre-Chris Paul, or I guess pre-Ricky Rubio, how important point guard play is in the fucking NBA.
Well, and I
Yeah,
know
whole
you
decade
guys
of
know
it.
this because I sounded like a broken record, and I'm sure it was annoying, but I could never sell it on like, what are we doing with no point guard? I just could never understand. And we would bring up examples of other teams that have kind of done it, and yeah, we saw firsthand it doesn't work. You need a point guard or like a yoke. You know, yeah, I understand, but point book was not being maximized, right? He could do okay, but then you're kind of taking away the thing he really excels at. So we have a point guard. That's great. Monty Morris is great for, I don't think he's going to play a lot, but when we get injuries, and inevitably it's going to happen, I think it's great to have that depth.
If he's willing to buy in and be a bench role guy and play hard off the bench to kind of, it feels like both Tyus Jones and Monty Morris this year are their audition years for the rest of the league, which feels odd, kind of knowing almost they're not going to be back next year. But it's like, hey, if you guys play super duper well in your roles here, you're going to get paid a lot more somewhere else next year. So just kick ass this year. Be a mercenary, you know?
Couldn't we still say, isn't easier, not that I want to take us down this road too much, but like, isn't it easier to re-sign a player?
Not Tyus Jones. He, from a minimum, we wouldn't be able to offer him next to nothing for what his value should be.
Well, he was sold on coming here and starting, like we said, in the vision. And also, like, he sounds like a great guy because he's like, I just want to compete. I've made a ton of money in my career, and I want to win a championship. I was like, that's my boy. So early fan points, saying the right stuff. That's great.
That was the guy I wanted the most going into the offseason, but it felt like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
And then as we're going through the first 2 weeks of free agency, he's still out there, but as we've made a couple other moves for some other guys, you're like, well, now there's no way. Like, that's not going to happen. He's not going to come here for this money. So there's a handful of teams that are still under the cap, so he'll get paid somewhere for a year and then go elsewhere. So, I mean, obviously we are homers and we like people that show loyalty, and I think taking a 75% pay cut is a step in that direction. But I think it's more about the on-court stuff that really makes me excited because, again, it's just the stability that we didn't really have.
Well, I got to be honest, I would have been over the moon with just Monty Morris.
Yeah.
We signed him first, right?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, great. I'm so happy. We have a point guard. Hopefully he'll start. And then obviously Tyus Jones like, oh, well, then this is happening for sure.
I do think that was a slightly overblown part of last season. Not that you were wrong, Sean, about the point guard experiment failing the whole time. You were right. But people would go to that as low-hanging fruit. People who didn't know the team as well, that would just be, oh, they don't have a point guard. And it's like, okay, who are you going to get in the middle of last season?
That was the hard part.
Yeah, like there's nobody on the waiver wire. They just kicked the tires on Isaiah Thomas for no reason. That shows you how fucking desperate they were. So, like, it was clear that there wasn't a solution. They made it a priority this offseason because they realized they had messed it up. They addressed it as good as anybody could possibly have hoped. Yeah. Is it going to be enough? That's the question we'll get to in predictions, but I don't think they could have done any better in the offseason. Given the second apron, given the restraints of the roster, they did everything they could to make this team the best it could be.
Man, fuck Tim Bontemps, because the whole season, the Suns, in his weird fucking voice, the Suns, what are they going to do? They're just going to be this same bad team next year. They're going to have no flexibility to do it. We signed like 2 new point guards. We did really well in the draft. Like, fuck that guy. I'm very proud of our team.
It's really funny how we judge GMs because it feels like the big moves are the ones that get the attention. But what really wins and makes teams championship teams is these moves in the margin. It's bolstering the bench. It's solid draft picks at the end of the draft. It's guys that you don't expect to make huge contributions, but then do in key moments. That's what wins championships. The Nuggets were good, and then they got the Bruce Browns and Christian Bronze and those types of guys, and then all of a sudden they're champions. It's like, oh. Those guys matter a lot on top of the stars.
Yeah. So let's talk about the draft pick, the main one, the most important one.
Have we held off talking about Ryan Dunn enough? Because I kind of want to talk about Ryan Dunn.
Yeah, I want to talk about Ryan Dunn, but I want to really caution that shooting 44% for 3 like you did in the preseason. I don't think that means he's just going to come in and. But you know what? I said the same thing about Grayson Allen. I was like, I'm so glad he's shooting threes this well. It's not going to last. And then it did. But if he shoots 9 to 10% less, which is a lot, that's a huge drop, that would still be amazing. I mean, we would be like a huge title favorite, I think. Like that's the difference that makes.
It's all we asked out of Josh Okogie, who, by the way, shot 31% from 3 last year. We talked about it off air a lot. Just get to like 35. You don't have to be a sniper. You don't have to be a sharpshooter. You just can't get disrespected and left open in the corner on the best looks you can get in basketball. And Okogie can't make them, which is why it's fine that he's going to get pushed back in the rotation a little bit. It's what you said. Dunn shoots 36%. That's an A-plus draft pick at that slot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, if he shoots over 40... God, depending on how his defense translates, and it seems to be really good so far, you're going to look at like maybe he should have been like in the top of the draft, which is great.
JJ Redick had a quote after the Suns play the Lakers where basically he said, had I known that Ryan Dunn was a 45% 3-point shooter, he would have been a little higher on our draft board. It's like, yeah, I bet so.
Yeah.
The fun Ryan Dunn stat is that when he hit 6 threes against the Nuggets, he hit 6 threes in a preseason game against the Nuggets. He hit 7 threes the entire season last year at Virginia.
Yeah.
Like the 3-point line is closer in college. Like what the hell?
So you hope that something mechanically was fixed. And from what I've heard, he's really paid attention to fixing his form. Not like Mikal Bridges, who has done the opposite. But like really fix the mechanics to where people said like, we think, like scouts in the know allegedly said like, we think he's going to be better. And then he comes out in preseason and he's shooting this well. So again, is 45% going to be sustainable? Probably not. But if he addressed the root cause, that could be huge. And he could be good enough to really get some playing time.
My favorite video I saw of him in the preseason was a drill they were doing after a practice where they were just throwing him like intentionally bad passes. Sometimes they hit him right in the pocket, but there were other times like, here's a low bounce pass. Here's one that's off to your left. You got to reposition. That kind of work that he's putting in, I think is what's going to translate well. I'm not saying he's going to be a phenomenal shooter, but when I watch him shoot, I'm like, that feels like a shot motion that can be better and is already improving.
Yeah. It
doesn't feel like there's a weird hitch, a weird giddy up, awful foot placement. Like it just feels, from somebody who can't shoot for shit myself, like you can tell when you're seeing somebody who has a nice jumper and who doesn't. There's nothing mechanically to me that looks off with him.
How tall is he?
6'8".
6'8". So
and phenomenal defender.
Yeah,
just
that's the big thing, right? So we were gonna say like, so he's basically Josh Okogie, but probably a little bit better defender, bigger, and it's looking like he's going to shoot better. And so what it makes me think is, and you guys are going to hate this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think a question throughout the season is going to be, is that the ideal version of this team? Is that the best version of the team with him in the starting lineup? Because not only does he bring that to the starting lineup, but he kind of slots Durant and Booker a little more into the position that they're most comfortable with, allowing them to play a little bit smaller. So it's going to be something I'm thinking about as we go in. And again, Beal, I don't know how he's going to feel about coming off the bench, but having that scoring ability coming off the bench, being the Manu Ginobili type, I think it could be huge. I am with Chris. You don't start the season like that. You're going to start with Beal. You're going to roll with him for a while. But it's going to be something, seeing how the season progresses, it could be something that we talk about.
The good thing in your scenario that you just described, it means Ryan Dunn earned it. Like, it means that he went out and continued shooting this well and played this good defense. And it means that he went out and earned it and pushed Bradley Beal to the bench, which would be good sign.
That is the one of the two scenarios. The other scenario is we're such dog shit that they're desperate for anything else to click.
Yeah.
And I think they're both about equally likely, because I think we're putting a lot of pressure on a guy who wasn't even in the top 20 in the draft.
Yeah, right.
And I don't blame fans for being excited, and now they're trying to make him and Oso the twins 2.0. And look, I get it. Their camaraderie seems good between the two of them. And again, the vibes are really high. They seem like really nice kids. I understand all that, but there's a reason why they were available when they were. I think the Suns did excellent to get them in those slots, to be clear. But they weren't lottery picks, and there's a reason why.
I think exercising caution for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying, like, I want to be... Eventually, that could be the best version of this team, but it's dependent on a few things, and it's dependent on how much of Ryan Dunn is real and how much is just preseason. But you saw Oso. Oso?
Yeah, Oso.
Iguodaro?
I don't want to say exposed, but like there were really high hopes. And in the preseason, like he had some good games and some like he looked like a player that was taken to the draft when he was taken.
Yeah.
And you're like, fine, that's great. There's a learning curve. That's to be expected. Ryan Dunn exceeded so much that you're like, well, now I don't know. We're going to have to see as the season goes on. But we're going to start with our starting five. He's going to come off the bench and we're going to roll with it. But it's exciting to be able to have that conversation.
And whether or not he's starting, I think if Ryan Dunn is a 20-minute-a-night guy as we go into the playoffs, we are a contender.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If he isn't, it's still possible, but that would be a huge step in the right direction. For Oso, I think the timetable is too quick. What I liked from both in the preseason was that they both had high basketball IQ and a willingness to make the right play in the offense. And that includes Oso, who's a big, but showed some ability to finish on a pick and roll and some decent passing touch that I was not expecting from him.
Yep.
Now, again, I don't really expect him to be playing a ton of minutes. I think some people are like, oh, he'll probably take some from Mason Plumlee by the end of the year. And I'm like, again, let's maybe like slow down just a little bit.
Yeah.
But if he's playing well and he's in the rotation, I do think that's also a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, we've come so far from the Josh Jackson, Marquise Chris days of, oh, it's so much raw talent. It's like, but the IQ was horrible. Now we seem to be getting high IQ guys, and it's like, oh, I feel so much more secure as a fan.
It's like almost a breath of fresh air to be like, hey, these guys have a bunch of upside. They may have some flaws. That's why we got them late in the draft. But at least we have some upside on these guys because we know they're smart players. Maybe they won't work out. You know, the Kendall Marshalls of the world who have all the IQ and great passes but can't make it because they can't do anything else. Yeah. These guys do a little bit of everything, it seems, which hopefully you can improve on that.
They're the type of players that could contribute to a team that is contending right now. So they were good draft picks for that reason and nothing else. They also seem to have upside, to be clear. But this isn't like Poku with the Thunder, where it's like a 19-year-old on a team that's trying to start to win, and obviously is very much trying to win now, and like a deer in headlights out there because he's got all this talent but doesn't know what to do with it. These are smart kids who might have a chance of hanging in a 10-man rotation. We'll see. And there's one other name I think we need to mention because it's kind of a returner and kind of a new player almost, and that's Damian Lee.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that one.
Is he going to crack the rotation regularly? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's a good enough defender to rely upon, especially with this many guards getting heavy minutes. But the fact that you can hopefully deploy him in a game where you're not clicking well, the bench unit's not doing much, and maybe get some threes out of him in a 10-minute spurt, it's a nice option to have back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that
we know what he can do shooting wise. Like he can shoot. That's what he's put on the floor to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then you look at that. So if you're looking at rotation, realistically, you're going to have the Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, Ryan Dunn, and Plumlee, right?
And probably Bol. So it's hard to tell if he's going to get regular minutes or not.
Probably.
I think it's going to be matchup specific, to be honest, because there are certain matchups where Bol is a nice fit as like a stretch 4 or even maybe a 5 at times, and there are certain matches where like, nope, he's not going to play today.
But even that is 5 deep right there. And Bud has said he's doing 9 to 10 man rotation. So, which makes sense, right? But that means like Damian Lee, Oso, like those are guys that aren't going to be seeing. Monty Morris probably, right? Isn't regularly going to be seeing a lot of minutes. It's a good problem to have. But it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out as the season goes on.
Can I have a confession that I've never been on the Bol train? I don't understand the hype. Like, I don't get it. He's got flashes, yay, but I don't understand like why everyone is so in love with him. I'm
excited that I don't care as much this year. Last year, it's like we need someone like him because we're like, and now it's like, I think we've done good around the margins to where like if he doesn't pan out, like fine. All my hopes aren't on Bol anymore.
No, he's big with like the fantasy basketball fans because in 12 minutes he might put up some nights like 10-5-2 with 2 steals and a block or something weird. Like in certain matchups against certain teams or bench units, he can go absolutely crazy because he's such a freak in a good way, but also a bad way sometimes. But there are other times where like, I know they experimented with like him and Nurkic playing alongside each other, and if Nurkic is going to shoot some threes at an adequate pace, maybe it's different. But it was like I don't know about all this, guys, because those are 2 sketch defenders against anybody who has like any lateral movement.
What I don't understand is him looking lost on defense still, and I'm like, are you just not working enough? Like, do you not see that if you put in a little bit of work on defense, which I think is the easy part? If you focus on it, you're going to get it. The schemes and where you're supposed to move. And he just still looks lost. And it's not even that his lateral movement is not good enough, because that's an issue too. But like he also just doesn't always understand the schemes, or he takes plays off. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
It's crazy. Almost like an effort thing, and also how are you? I don't know. I've said this before, but if you've got the opportunity to make tens of millions of dollars, I mean, I'm in the film room all the time, like breaking this down, sitting with coaches, begging them to sit with me, like figuring it out.
It's the DeAndre Ayton thing. Like, you're not progressing and you'd rather be playing video games. And I fucking love video games, man. I get it. But like, look at what is on the line here, you know?
My hope is that he, and I guess maybe even Nurkic to a smaller extent, will benefit a little bit from Bud being pretty insistent on drop coverage, which is going to have its own flaws and strengths as we go through the season in certain matchups. But I think he's going to be a much better defender in drop than he is trying to chase some like 6'8" small forward in some weird matchups around pick and rolls and stuff. Maybe that helps spotlight him. But like you said, he's probably like the 11th best player on this roster, so that's a good problem to have, because if for some reason it clicks for him, what a phenomenal asset to have. And if it doesn't, well, again, you weren't relying on him for that much.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because I'm sure there are going to be, even if we do great, well, I say this with caution because I don't think we did a lot of this last season of like back-to-backs. Durant played like 75 games last year.
Yep.
So he wasn't doing the Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard, like we're just automatically as a process sitting you on the halves of back-to-backs. And but probably some players, Beal or Booker or Durant, are going to be sitting. And so we're going to get a little bit deeper. It'll be interesting to see how they do that. Are we going to find a way to get like the Monty Morris, like the small guards in the rotation more, or going big?
And I wonder, like, if you want Booker to sit for a night and you actually have established some pretty good rotations with your health, is that where you like start Damian Lee for Booker and keep everybody else in their kind of set rotation and coming in at the same time? Like, that's a luxury where you can kick the tires on Damian and be like, yeah, play like 20 minutes tonight. Like, you're not going to play Booker's minutes and have his role, but maybe you have the luxury of doing that with a roster like this, where before it was like, well, obviously this person's moving to the starting lineup and then you're going to play off the bench. Because, I mean, you remember the third-ish mark of the season last year when we were the worst hit by injuries. Like, oh, we're starting Chimezie Metu at center tonight. Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, it's all we have. I understand, but like, this is going to be fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Becky or whatever his name was.
Azubuike,
Azubuike, who
I
has
forgot about him.
for a two-way
Azubuike.
player, played great. You know, if he'd been in like a Lou Amundsen role, we probably would have loved him. But instead, he was playing like 25 minutes for a few nights there, and we're like, oh god.
Yeah.
And that's going to
Nope,
come down
not
to it
what
when
we
we
want.
make our predictions too. Health, unsurprisingly, is not like a major secret here, where we're talking about like, ooh, this deep NBA analysis to be like, yeah, like these guys can get hurt. Durant's going into his 19th season, I believe, or 18th. He's 36 at the start of the season. So, like, there's obvious concerns here, and Booker's missed at least 15 games each of the last 5 seasons. Beal, kind of a fluke part of it. Like, he never had back problems before, so you hope he's going to be... But he's also not played a ton, even the last couple of years in Washington. So, like, it's a big concern, but it's going to be a concern for almost every team in the league.
I saw somebody saying,
Especially
like,
the Clippers.
Yeah.
if we have decent health, they didn't have us at perfect health. They had decent health. They had our team pushing 60 wins. And I thought that was interesting, but also, like, why not? If we won 49 with a not very good health season and not very good vibes or play or anything season, we won. Chris has talked about this many times. We still won 49 games.
I don't know how.
Yeah. Especially with the fucking games that, like, we blew. I would love to go back and look at a stat of, like, how many games we were leading with even, like, 5 minutes left.
We lost 3 times to the Spurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I pulled up the standings.
Funny that we're the 4th seed if we win those 3 games. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the standings for the audio listeners just because it's basically time to transition here and talk about predictions. I'm pulling them up because we've talked about the West being murderer's row. When you look at the teams around the Suns in the standings, there's only one obvious candidate for decline, and that's the Clippers, as Dave mentioned, because Paul George is gone and hurt. Kawhi is again hurt, and James Harden is 36.
Yeah, they're fucked.
So they certainly feel like a missing the play-in kind of team. But the rest of the West is tough. The Thunder are getting better, not only because of their internal growth, but because they got Caruso and Hartenstein for basically nothing.
And they got rid of a child molester, so that's, addition by subtraction.
Sure, that's great. If you can get that and get Caruso, that feels like a win. The Nuggets did get slightly worse unless one of their young players like Peyton Watson pops, but they're still really good, and they still have Jokic. You have big questions around like Murray and Porter, but like at least this season they're going to be good. They're facing a nightmare now that they just gave Aaron Gordon a max extension. Like, they're going to be in second apron hell the next couple of years. But this season, they're built to win, obviously. The Timberwolves kind of felt like they took another step in the playoffs. The Mavericks made the finals.
Actually, really quick, though, because I want to continue this. But the Timberwolves, I think, okay, maybe not big question mark, little question mark.
Sure.
With Julius
big
Randle.
question mark.
You think
Huge
big question mark?
For me. I mean, they made steps last year in the playoffs for sure. Anthony Edwards was way overblown, but he deserved a lot of praise, not as much as he got. But they just gave up a person that's been an ambassador for the team, almost like, in a way, they're Devin Booker, not so much, but the guy who was around in the bad times and then finally started to celebrate the good times and, nope, see ya, out of here, because we can't afford you. What?
Yeah.
Like, I could not believe that trade when it happened.
Well, and the question is, like, I would think part of the reason this team worked is because you had a shooter in Cat by Rudy Gobert, right? And now you have 2 people in the play. I just think I could be wrong. I think this is a big step back for them. I think they're still. I think you can lock them into that top 3 for all. But I don't know. I have big questions.
I think it just depends on what Julius Randle they get. It is a contract year for Julius, so if he's ever going to care, this is the year to do it. It's clearly not his team. It's clearly Ant's team. And you have the guy who can fix all the defensive shortcomings behind him in Rudy Gobert, kind of like he did with Cat, because obviously in certain matchups where they were playing a small ball 4, Cat was sort of lost because who the hell is he supposed to guard then? A lot of times he would just be guarding the slowest guard he could find. And for all the talk about Cat as the best shooter, self-proclaimed big man of all time, he shot sub 20% from 3 in the conference finals, and I don't want to overblow one series, but I feel like that's part of the reason he's gone.
Yeah.
He was getting phenomenal looks and could not shoot to save his life that series. And we've seen from in the past, the Timberwolves kind of like crumble when it came to pressure. A great front-running team, but I just wonder if that was a change of pace. You know they don't make that trade unless Ant signs off on it. There's no way in hell. So between that and I think a slightly underrated acquisition in DiVincenzo, I have talked myself into not thinking it's awful.
Okay.
I don't know if I think they're better, but I at least see the reasoning behind it, especially when you consider that Cat's going to be making $63 million in 2 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Okay.
Knicks are going to be in cap hell. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's keep running down with that. You got the Mavericks. I am afraid of them. I still maintain, even with the better looks, even playing alongside Luka, I think he's washed. I think he's done and dusted. But that was a scary team because they had a 50-32 record. If you look at, like, it was something like since the All-Star break and the acquisitions they made there, they were like the number 1 team in the West or very close to it. They were playing much, much, much better to close out the season.
Yep.
And then obviously they went to the finals. So I think they're scary, which I hate. It sickens me, but they worry me a lot.
They seem to yo-yo as far as their dangerousness. You know, it feels like they have good years and then bad years. And maybe I'm letting my Luka hate blind me. I don't see how it works. It did. They made the finals, so clearly something worked. I just don't understand it almost how it works. But I see them kind of having the downswing of the yo-yo, I guess, is kind of what I'm thinking this year.
Really
Maybe not a horrible, but down.
They have Kyrie, which is a big part of that when he's playing well. And then it was almost like the 3 other players on the floor are, I want to say, like extensions of Luka. Like, you're going to dunk for me, kind of.
Yeah, but they actually got players that could do that. They have a full season of Gafford now, and that was a big-time acquisition for them at the trade deadline because, like, I don't know, you looked at their roster and you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, what bigs am I talking myself into? Now, Lively was a revelation as a draft pick, but you're looking at the other guys they've had there for a while, like, say, Dwight Powell, and you're like, oh, yeah, he can't handle a fucking pick and roll for shit, so that's why they needed an upgrade at that position because Luka desperately needs a lob threat. It unlocks a lot of his passing.
Yep.
They have it now. They have it for a full season, and now they have somebody, unlike, say, Derrick Jones Jr., who's not going to clank every corner 3, because even for everything that Klay Thompson's struggling with, he shot 38.5% from 3 last year on, like, 10 a game. And if he's getting more open looks in the corners now instead of this weird stuff he tries to force, could be plus 40 again.
Now, if we can't...
Unless he's just washed.
Well, right. If we can't over-celebrate Ryan Dunn, we also can't make a final judgment on Klay in the preseason. But he's something like 3 for 30.
Well, he was good his first game, but then it was like 0 for 9 the next one or something.
Yeah. And
it
like,
wasn't good.
And like 1 for 10 the next. Like, it's been bad. Now, I think one of those games, Luka was not there, so it's more contested
Luka
looks.
and Kyrie, I think. So it was him for whatever. I don't even know why they played him. I guess just to make sure his legs were ready. But, like, if you're going to sit the rest of the starters, what are you doing with Klay Thompson, who could barely create for himself at his prime? Sure as hell can now.
Yeah. So I think it's a little overblown, but I'm not super optimistic. But Dallas scares me nonetheless.
But underneath us is where I take pause here.
Right.
So I think 5 of the 6 teams above us are threats to still finish above us. Sorry, 4 of the 5. Underneath us, the Pelicans added DeJounte Murray, which I think is going to be better for him. I don't think he was the right fit at shooting guard with the Hawks, and obviously Trae Young's the point guard there.
Yep.
If they're going to be committed to bringing McCollum off the bench, and they're running this weird lineup where, like, Herb Jones is the center so that Zion's the power forward, but there is a scenario where the Pelicans could get better this year. The Lakers brought back basically the same team.
Yep.
The Kings added DeMar DeRozan, which is like, okay, you already had some spacing problems with Sabonis and Fox, because, like, Fox's really hot start to the year shooting from 3 was a mirage. He finished at like 34%. The Warriors, I guess Buddy Hield's better than Klay at this point, but, like, am I supposed to be scared of the Warriors? If Steph misses any time, that team is dead.
Yep.
The Rockets, are they really going to take another leap? They finished 500 last year in a crowded West, but, like, am I that scared of, like, Şengün?
I am a little... I don't think they're going to overtake us necessarily, but I think they're going to make a jump just because 41-41, they're like the Mavericks, where they played a lot better to end the season. And I know there was a couple frustrating games at the end where we're like, this Rockets team, they're not that good. How are they beating us over and over again? It's like, well, to be fair, they've been playing like winning basketball in this stretch.
Yep.
So, and what's his name? Jalen
Green.
He's good. He's seeming like he's going to deliver.
Just got an extension. The only team that's down here that scares me isn't any of those ones we just mentioned. It's the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh yeah, they're I think going to be good again, right? Because they have Jaw back.
Yep. And Zach Edey looks like he might actually be legit.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works exactly. And at certain matchups, it feels like there's no way it can. But like, that's a good addition. Even if he's just like kind of like Steven Adams was for them a couple of years ago, where it's like big guy, set screens, good rebounder. And if he's got better offensive touch than Steven Adams,
well,
I don't know. But it's more so just like, oh yeah, Desmond Bane's not going to miss half the season. Hopefully Jaw's got his head screwed on straight. He's not going to miss 2/3 of the season. Like,
you took the words out of my mouth with like if Edey just becomes a better Steven Adams, that's a pretty scary team.
I've watched him in college, and I have stared at him saying, how can this work in the NBA? And if it does, more power to him, because I have not seen it.
The Spurs. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like in some ways it's almost like we've maybe overcorrected with, everybody's got to play 5 out all the time.
Yeah.
So like you've lost some skill sets like his to where what teams have a Zach Edey defender all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or Minnesota, they have Gobert.
Yeah, there's a few, obviously. I'm being hyperbolic, but you know what I mean? Like, he can cause some problems in some matchups. Teams are like, oh, you're going to insist on playing small, huh? All right, well, we're going to throw it to him in the post, and you figure out what the fuck to do with that. Good luck.
He's 7'4". Good luck.
The Spurs will be better. Chris Paul's a floor raiser, but they're not ready to win more than 41 games yet. They're not ready to be above 500. If I'm wrong on that, I guess I'll eat crow, but that would be a 19-win jump for them, and they didn't really get a whole lot better around him besides Chris Paul.
They didn't. Wemby's going to be, if you believe it, a little bit better, but that's marginal.
If they finish above 500, Victor Wembanyama is the MVP.
Yeah,
like it's that simple. He's going to be like 23, 15, and 6 blocks a game, and they're going to catch the league by storm, I guess. And the Trailblazers are dog shit.
They're going to be the worst team again.
Well, in the West, yeah.
Hi, DeAndre. Hope you're doing well up there.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be part of the problem. So good.
Because there's 3 teams that are not really trying to win in the West. I guess the Spurs are trying. They're not going to be very good at it. The Jazz are clearly punting, but yet they haven't traded marketing yet, probably because Danny Ainge is a psychopath and he wants to dominate every trade he would make. The Blazers are god-awful. In the East, you struggle to find 10 teams that are going to make the play-in game. Because once again, the East compared to the West sucks. So it's a bad time, as always, to be in the West because, like, the Suns could win 45 games. That would be disappointing for them, I think, and miss the play-in or something. It's a possibility. In the East, you could probably be sub-500 and, like...
be in a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, it happened last year. You can see it right there on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, 2 teams were below 500 and made play-in games. This year, you could be like a 30-win team, and you might make the 10 seed.
Honestly, you look at the East and you're like, what teams are even a title threat? And I think it's those top 3. If you think New York is a title threat.
I do.
And that's it.
They could be.
They could be, right? I included them, yeah, but that's it. The West.
I mean, with the 76ers and what you thought they could be, and then all of a sudden both Paul George and Embiid are missing the opening night game, and just as a symptom of like, oh yeah, this is what you guys get to deal with, have fun. It's like, oh, well, bye. I guess you're not a contender.
Fair. I should include the 76ers as fringe if everything goes right for them. I think Miami, if everything goes right for them, right?
I'm kind of over them. I do think the Cavs and the Magic deserve a mention as a possible fringe contender, certainly not the top tier. But if each of them can take internal strides, the biggest question for me with the Cavs is just fit. Because in some ways they were better when they didn't have both Mitchell and Garland playing together. And the Magic are so young that, was last year sort of like a baptism by fire? Are they ready to take another step with that playoff experience, or was that a fluke?
Well, right. But then you look at the West and you're like Thunder, Denver, the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, the Suns, hopefully. The Pelicans, if everything goes right, they could be scary.
Yeah, they're in the same boat as like the Cavs and the Magic to me. I think they deserve to be in that same tier.
The Lakers, if everything goes right and you get a resurgence of LeBron and AD, I mean, that's all it took for them to win their first title there.
There is a world where the Warriors are contenders still.
Right, and I was going to mention them too, and then the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
It's just like...
that's 8 teams. That's a playoff bracket.
Yeah.
And in the East...
and then Houston's lurking.
Yeah, Houston could be ready. I don't think they are yet. So, like, it's a murderer's row in the West, which is why all the win totals that were projected were all over the place. It's why I saw like 46.5 for the Suns at one point, which was, by the way, smashed the over. But like everything in the West is so competitive that it's just smushing everything into the aggregate because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, how many games can you win when you have to play these teams this often?
Right. So what did we do for predictions last year? So, because I know we need to wrap it up, but we always do a win, prediction, right? So
Yep.
what do you guys have for wins?
I think last year we went in like consecutive order, so we didn't pick the same number. I don't remember who had what. I think I went first and took 52, and Dave was mad at me for doing it and went one off, and I don't remember which direction.
I went up one, I think.
And we're just going to do the closest one. We're not going to do like go over.
I think Sean was the most pessimistic, and he had 51.
Yeah.
I think it was 51 for Sean, 52 for me, 53 for Dave. So technically, Sean won because we didn't make 51, and yet again, I still have no idea how we even got close to it.
Yeah.
But yet this year, I'm going 54.
54.
That's my prediction for this year. Yeah.
I'll let Chris go next, and I'll be honest about what the number in my head was. So what are you thinking, Chris?
I wanted to do mine last as a reveal. I had them at 56.
Oh my God. My number was 55.
No,
which is a terrible place for this. Like, if we were actually like wagering anything, don't go one in the middle where I have to be exactly or I lose. But I don't care. 55 was the number I was going to go with.
You understand we've done this like 5 or 6 years, and we've done this like 4 times where we have 3 consecutive. And this is, we don't plan this ahead of time, folks.
I was going to be honest. That's why I told Dave. I was like, I'm going to stick to my number. It was 55. It just.
Yesterday, I was thinking to myself, I was like, am I going 55 on this pick? And I was like, no, I think I'm going one more than that. And I'm going to be like, oh man, they're not going to go that high. They'll be like 52, 53 probably. And I'm like, I'll show them, but not really.
My first thought was 52, and I'm like, no, we can improve from where we were. The fact that we won 49 last year in spite of ourselves means we're going to improve more than 3. So.
I probably should have gone higher. Like I actually am very optimistic. I'm trying to account for injuries and things like that.
Well, I look at these standings; it's hard for me to go higher.
And then there's that problem,
especially when you think the Thunder are probably going to win 60 this year. That's like the bet is like over under 59.5. Like, do you want to commit to the Thunder being a 60-win team because they're young? They're going to be driven to win the regular season. They're very talented. They're probably the best team in the West. Yeah. You could even argue they're the best team in the league potentially if everything clicks. I know the Celtics are reigning champs and returned everybody, but so like that's looming where it's like, okay, you already have to win 55 plus now to get to where we're at, and now you're looking at a team above you that's winning 60 plus potentially. I don't know. You can call me a homer, but I look at the pieces of this roster, what we did last season, the improvements that we've made in the fringes and just in the main parts of the rotation, and my expectation that this will be a more attractive and better style of basketball. I'm making this pick betting that Ryan Dunn is real. And I'm not even that optimistic in it, like a lot of fans are, but I don't expect him to be Mikal Bridges of 3 years ago right now. Again, I just need him to be a legit rotation guy. Because if he is, we have 2 different lockdown defenders we can throw at people, and one of them might not be an offensive liability. And that should cover up for the biggest weakness this roster, I think, has, which is defense.
Yeah. Yes. And we were in the preseason, I said we were like, I think number 3 in 3-point attempts. I think it's reasonable to be in the 40s per game, which is insane. And I think I want to say 10 teams last year were in the 40 attempts per game. If we can be as one of those 10 teams or whatever, I think that really bodes well for what this team is good at. Boston leads the league, if you were curious, in 3-point attempts by like a lot. They're insane, but that's what I mean though. Like that new approach to the game itself, shooting more threes, I think is gonna make a huge difference. And everything else that comes with that. So yeah, 56, I like it. I'm hopefully more. Hopefully Chris wins this year. Hopefully we get 65 wins. You know,
that'd be great.
That'd be fun.
I would love to be a very low.
Yeah. If you're the low one, but we win a championship, I think you're gonna be okay.
Yeah. But I also don't really care if we win 51, but we're like gelling and moving in the right direction come playoff time.
Of course.
You know, that's fine. I'm not really worried about the exact win totals or other than being top 6, what seed. It'd be nice to have home court advantage. I'd love to be top 4. And I'm not worried about being second in the West, which a few people have started to pick as we get close to the season starting tonight. And I'm like, there's a world where that could happen. Again, I think the Thunder clear us no matter what we do. But I look at these other teams and I'm like, is Denver really going to try that hard in the regular season?
Right.
Are the Timberwolves going to gel quickly enough?
That point. Yeah.
The Timberwolves, I think, are going to be good in the long haul, but that feels like a 11-10 start waiting to happen while they get all these new pieces acclimated. I don't know. And the Suns obviously are one like Kevin Durant breaking his leg away from this whole thing being moot. But again, what team can't you point to and say that? Maybe the Thunder and maybe the Celtics because their depth at the top is that good, and that's about it.
You know, as I reflect on the past few years that we've gone through with this team ever since the bubble, basically, where it's like, oh, hey, we're contenders. We feel like we're contenders are on the fridge of contenders every year. Man, regular season wins are fun. And I love the 2022 season still is one of my favorite regular seasons. The heartbreak at the end of that really put a sour taste in my mouth. I don't give a shit how many games we win in the regular season this year. I do not.
Yeah.
Get us in the playoffs and let's see what happens.
You know what's weird too? Just to go back to Dallas, because I'm with you, and they do scare me a little bit. But part of it is if you watch it, and maybe you can attribute it to their defense. I just didn't think they were all that great at defense. Watching the Thunder play them, they just like fucking collapsed. It like Thunder are so good, and it just became this weird iso ball. They looked like every possession they just got away from what they were doing in the regular season completely.
I think they're too young.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I think that's where Caruso helps too, because he gives them another playmaker and another guy who can just bring the ball up and stuff that they didn't really have. I mean, they were completely Shea dependent last year.
Yeah,
and they still got as far as they did.
And then the Timberwolves, same thing. Like, we made them look like fucking world beaters, and then they just
it was Jordan.
Stuttered.
Anthony Edwards is Jordan, right?
Yeah, right. And then they played Dallas, and just like, again, they sort of collapsed. And again, part of that was just Towns has wide open shots, can't make them. What do you do? Is that Dallas's defense? I don't think so. I think he just choked.
In my head, the thing I keep coming back to is a math problem. They shot like 48% from the mid-range last year. And that's very good because we had some elite players who could do it. And it's a lot of times what the defense is willing to give you. So you say, fine, like that's not going to convert. You can't just make 48% of your threes if you start taking more of them. But 48% on long twos is 0.96 points per possession. If you shoot 36% from three as a team, that's 1.08. Yeah. And you're going to have 90 possessions in a game. So if you convert 10 of those into things that are giving you better shots, that's another point per game. Just from changing the type of shots. God forbid you get better at them. Your offense runs more efficiently. You're getting better passes, better open looks. But just from a math perspective, that's a point or two more a game. And the team was already good offensively last year. If they can maintain defensively, clean up turnovers, and shoot better shots on offense, it feels like the differential should be 5 or 6 instead of 3. As you look at the standings, that's the measure of an elite team.
Yep.
Only 4 teams cleared 5 points per game differential. The Nuggets, the T-Wolves, the Thunder, and the Celtics. They were all pretty good. So that's where I'm going with it. I may be very wrong, and we may win 47, and I'll look like a dumbass. But like,
I don't think so. Barring injuries or something weird, I think we're going to be good. And I was not saying that last year.
No.
I had a lot of concerns, and I was hoping we were going to be good. I really feel good about this year.
I'm almost scared how good I feel about it.
Yeah, right. But like we saw, I think just seeing like, oh, Durant, when he's on a team that has good vibes and good ball movement and plays team basketball, the Olympic team, like, oh, he's not washed. He played great. It was like Kevin Durant's of old. They're like, oh, he still has it.
Yeah.
He's still, you know who he is, basically.
Yeah.
What's funny with me this season is I am super optimistic. I feel great about our opportunities this year. I feel like we picked the right people moving in. And for some reason, I feel so little anxiety about it because last year was such a slog to get through that it feels like anything's going to be better at this point, right? Like either we're going to be terrible and it's like, all right, well, it just didn't work. Let's sell the farm and move on. Or, hey, this team's pretty good. Let's move. Let's see what we got.
I think the expectations being lower helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of akin to when we made the leap and made the finals. It was like that team was not expected to do that well. And even us, we were surprised at how good they were. We didn't have them winning that many games that year. So like it's fun when the expectations are lower and then you just have a good time, you exceed them, everything feels great. Even you can even win the same amount of games over 2 seasons, but the expectations can change the way you look at that very drastically.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think also the feeling, I think when it first happened, we bought into the like, we got to win now because we have no future. And it's like, no, you always have a future.
Yeah.
You just sell all your assets. It sucks. But like, there's always a way out. The league has shown us this many, many, many times.
Yep. Well, there's a couple exceptions, but there's almost always a way out.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Hornets are still at the bottom of the East, and they haven't moved there for a while. So
I don't know what the Chicago Bulls are going to do. Like, I think Zach LaVine's a negative asset. I think Vucevic is a negative asset, and DeRozan's gone. So like, yeah, Kobe White looks great, and they got Lonzo Ball back, and hopefully he can stay healthy because that'd be nice for him. But like, This is a team that's been below 500 and just barely in the play-in for like 4 straight years. What are they doing? I don't know. The Nets look like a mess right now. And yeah, they've got some draft capital coming back from the McHale trade, but like they don't control their own picks. They're just going to be really bad.
But what about Ben Simmons?
Maybe he's the answer.
Is he an NBA player still? I haven't heard about him yet lately.
He played.
So.
He scored in preseason.
Oh, good, he scored.
He had like the world's slowest layup, and everybody's like, Ben Simmons is back. Like,
and by the way, I think that if you're asking me which roster is the worst in the NBA, both this year and for the future, it's the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
Who gave up Avdija, who gave up Gafford, who gave up, I guess, Beal, all of these things for effectively nothing. And Kuzma's not going to get a ton back. Jordan Poole's a disaster. And there's like nobody who's an NBA player on that roster anymore.
There was a preseason game where I think Kuzma airballed 3 times. So
yeah, got to show out so you can get traded to a better team.
I'm still happy if he wants to come here and not a reduced role, and it'd be all right if he could come here on a very small role.
He would be an improvement over, I guess, Royce O'Neal, maybe. Unless he wants to jack 15 shots a game. But so that's the beauty of this, and that's why we call it the tradition. I guess I can switch back to the wide 3-shot, but like we have all these takes out there every year, and sometimes we hit and sometimes we don't, and we try and be as realistic as we can. And sometimes, I say things like I think Josh Childress would be a good Shawn Marion replacement, which, to be fair, was before this show. Was on the old one, but
And then Sean writes articles about how Marcin Gortat's going to lead us to the playoffs. So
we all have swings and misses. And I don't even think it was that crazy at the time, because you looked at Josh Childress and you're like, yeah, like he looks like he even has a fucked up shot like Shawn Marion. Like he's Shawn Marion light. Hakeem Warwick's going to be a Mark Stoudemire light. It's like, yeah, real fucking light.
Yeah, extremely light. Almost not resembling them at all.
Yeah.
Airy light, like too light.
Yeah.
But that's fine, because now I can look back on that and be like, yeah, that was... Boy, we were really trying hard to see the best in it, and sometimes we've seen the best, sometimes we've seen the worst. I'm a little shocked at how high we're coming in this year, but as Dave said, I don't really feel like it's unwarranted or outlandish. We'll see.
I mean, honestly, if Frank Vogel was back, I would not be as bullish. So, there's a lot that changed.
And if Kevin Young was back, I would not be as bullish.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see. Fingers crossed. But I'm making that pick. I'm not doing it as an optimist because I don't care if I'm right. I'm doing it because I think it's the number they're going to be around.
Right. I do. Yeah, same.
All right, that's the end of this episode. Next week, a Concert Palooza review and some election stuff. Leading into that, we'll be off the 5th for the election. And then all of a sudden, there's only 3 more Tuesdays between that and December where we've already got stuff planned out. So the end of the year will be upon us very fast. That's the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. Go Suns. They start tomorrow night against the Clippers. Tune in, I guess, or don't. In between episodes, you can find us at our website, grayareas.live, or youtube.com/@grayareaslive. We'll see you next time.